Hello everyone, I'm Governor Jennifer Granholm. Thank you for the opportunity to speak for a few minutes with your association today. I'm so sorry that I can't be there in person. You're probably aware the legislature has just returned from a Thanksgiving break, and there is a lot of work to be done here in Lansing, especially to secure the future of public education in Michigan. First, as you know, the school aid budget is wholly inadequate. I greatly appreciate the work that many of you have done and will continue to do to help get the message out to restore funding for public education. Second, we've just 3 weeks to enact important education reforms that are essential if Michigan is going to successfully compete for hundreds of millions of federal dollars in the race to the top. More about race to the top in a minute, but first let me just briefly address the budget. The school funding crisis is real, as you know. The way we fund education in Michigan is broken. We have to fix it. I've been advocating for both short-term solutions to address this year's problem, but also, more importantly, we have to adopt long-term spending and revenue reforms. Thanks to the work that many of you have done, citizens across our state are speaking out loudly, and there are signs that lawmakers in both parties are willing to do what's right to fund our schools, but we have to make more noise. In fact, our state house passed several measures to increase revenues to fund critical needs in our budget, and they're ready to do more. There's no reason that the state Senate cannot follow suit. So if you share my belief, and I know you do, that we need to provide our schools with the critical funds they need, I hope you'll continue to speak out. I encourage you to focus your persuasion on those who have voted no. Budgets are constantly being amended throughout the year. It is not too late. It's also not too late. In fact, the timing is just right for another subject, for Michigan to position itself to compete and win in the race to the top. Let me talk about that for a minute. This is a moment that demands us all to be on the same page, to work together to enact important reforms, and then to win the federal resources that will allow us to build an education system that'll be the foundation of a new Michigan. Let me be very clear. Race to the top resources are not a substitute for addressing Michigan's education funding crisis. Race to the top is about educational achievement reform, not funding or spending reform. Aggressive reforms are urgently needed in both areas. But the stakes could not be higher for Michigan. We're asking the legislature to do some very heavy lifting in a short period of time. In the 2 weeks since the final Race to the Top guidelines were released, we've taken stock of them, and we've taken stock of our state laws to determine the key reforms that we are going to need to enact to win this competition. And while each of these reforms meets a clear Race to the Top goal, I want to be very clear, these reforms, each in their own right, will also give us a stronger education system in Michigan. And that's because Race to the Top reflects President Obama's and Secretary Duncan's desire to move education in this country to new heights. Just as Michigan has set a goal to double the number of college graduates, President Obama has set an ambitious goal for the nation to once again lead the world in our share of population with college degrees by the year 2020. As the President has said, nothing we do is as important to American prosperity. And that is certainly true for Michigan as well. Nothing else we do is as important for the prosperity and the future of Michigan. Secretary Duncan has responded to this challenge with Race to the Top, and he is challenging the states, in turn, to commit themselves to reform, and has offered to those willing to be bold unprecedented federal resources. So what do we have to do? 4 things. States have to join with other states in establishing common core standards and assessments, and to benchmark our standards for the first time to international standards in this global economy. Now, Michigan is more than ready for this challenge because we've already adopted some of the most rigorous standards and graduation requirements in the nation. Second, we've been asked to create a comprehensive data system that can track student progress from preschool to grad school and all of the stops in between. In Michigan, we've been constructing just such a system, and now through Race to the Top and other recovery funding, we'll be able to complete that data system and put it to use, not only tracking our outcomes, which is student achievement, but improving them as well. Third, we've been asked to take concrete steps to increase the number of great teachers and great leaders in our schools. In Michigan, we're already blessed with great educators, but we know we can do much more to make best practices the common practice of all of our schools. It means that we have to have a relentless focus on student achievement like we've never done before. Not just a focus on inputs to the education system, but a focus on outputs. The student results are really what we're after. And fourth, finally, Secretary Duncan has also asked us to put aside excuses and find ways to fix our lowest performing schools. In Michigan, we're eager to take on this challenge because we know that we can't achieve our goals as a state if we're going to allow tens of thousands of our students to languish in schools and school districts that consistently fail to meet their basic education needs. So, to accomplish these goals, we need to be willing to change our laws, and we will. These 3 weeks, the next 3 weeks of this legislative session that begin today, are critical. And frankly, each of us has a role to play in making them successful. Let me state something that Secretary Duncan has made very clear. This is a competition. We can't just do the bare minimum. We have to rise to the top among states that are all competing for these important resources. No state needs it more than we do, not just financially, but from the long-term perspective of changing our economy. We must win. And we can win, but only if we work together. The path to progress calls on all of us to be willing to compromise. There are going to be changes in the legislative package that various stakeholders won't like. But the whole is so much greater than the sum of its parts. We can't simply allow legislative gridlock to deprive these students of the resources and the reforms that'll change our state. The race to the top isn't just an opportunity for Michigan to win much-needed federal resources. It's an opportunity to tell the nation and the world that we're a different Michigan, a new Michigan, not the fractious, hidebound state that some would accuse us of being, but a state that is committed to fundamental change, systemic change, the deep change that the future demands. That's the Michigan we must be, and it's the Michigan we can be. And in these next 3 weeks, with your help, it's the Michigan we will be. So thank you for listening, and thank you very much for what you do every day, past and future.